Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janarandana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Premanandi Haribo. Hare Krishna, everybody. My name is Vrajendra Kumar Dasa. I come from Russia, and I'm preaching to Russian-speaking groups in America. But I was also invited to give some talk here, so I just decided to use this chance to give a little presentation. which is called Human, Society and Cosmos, based on Bhagavad Gita, of course. And in the beginning, we'll read a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which is related to this topic. By the way, English is not my native talk, so if I make any mistakes, so please feel free to correct me or ask again if my pronunciation is not very clear. Okay, we'll start from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse number 30. Sadibhutadidhaivam tmam sadhyagyam cha vevidu prayana kalepi chamam te vidur yukta chetasa. Oops, what happened? Anyway, those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. Purport. Persons acting in Krishna consciousness are never deviated from the path of entirely understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the transcendental association of Krishna consciousness, one can understand how the Supreme Lord is a governing principle of the material manifestation and even of the demigods. Gradually, by such transcendental association, one becomes convinced of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and at the time of death, such a Krishna-conscious person can never forget Krishna. Naturally, he is thus promoted to the planet of the Supreme Lord, Goloka Vrindavana. The 7th chapter particularly explains how one can become a fully Krishna-conscious person. The beginning of Krishna consciousness is association of persons who are Krishna-conscious. Such association is spiritual and puts one directly in touch with the Supreme Lord. And by His grace, one can understand Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the same time, one can really understand the constitutional position of the living entity and how the living entity forgets Krishna and becomes entangled in material activities. By gradual development of Krishna consciousness in good association, the living entity can understand that due to forgetfulness of Krishna, he has become conditioned by the laws of material nature. He can also understand that his human form of life is an opportunity to regain Krishna consciousness, and that it should be fully utilized to attain the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. Many subjects have been discussed in this chapter. The man in distress, the inquisitive man, the man in want of material necessities, knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of Paramatma, liberation from birth, death, and distress, and worship of the Supreme Lord. However, he who is actually elevated in Krishna consciousness does not care for the different processes. He simply directly engages himself in activities of Krishna consciousness and thereby factually attains his constitutional position as an eternal servitor of the Lord Krishna. In such a situation, he takes pleasure in hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord in pure devotional service. He is convinced that by his doing so, all his objectives are will be fulfilled. This determined phase is called Drithavrata, and it is the beginning of Bhakti Yoga or transcendental loving service. That is the verdict of all scriptures. This 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is a substance of that conviction. Can you please return the picture? Can you please return the presentation? Oh, I can activate again. All right. Just a second. Okay. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sinhupya Evacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarini. So I have chosen the verse number 30 from the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita because Krishna mentions a few terms there. He introduces such terms as Adi-Atma, Adi-Bhuta, Adi-Daiva and Adi-Yagya. And Arjuna was a bit puzzled by these terms because he never heard them before. And in the very beginning of the chapter 8, he starts to inquire from Krishna, please give some explanation. What is it? Adi-Atma, Adi-Bhuta, Adi-Daiva, Adi-Yagya. And these three first terms, Adi-Atma, Adi-Atma refers to human beings because Adi-Atma means the mind and body. It's the first place where the soul resides. Wherever we may be, first of all, we are surrounded by our mind and our body. So that constitutes human being. Soul, subtle body, and physical body. That's human. The level of Adi-Bhuta, Adi-Bhuta literally means different bodies of different living entities. So it's a level of society, including all other living entities, like animals and plants. They're all living entities. And their bhutas, their bodies, they constitute society, our environment where we live. And the next level, Adi-Daiva means cosmos, because Daiva means demigods who are ruling over different processes in this universe. And Adi-Yagya means the Supreme Lord himself. It's a Supersoul, Paramatma, Adi-Yagya. And he is the one who pervades all these three levels, Adi-Atma, Adi-Bhuta, and Adi-Daiva. So he's kind of connecting everything, connecting principle. And when people live in the mood of yagya, sacrifice, then everything functions nicely. Person doesn't have any problem on the level of Adi-Atma, no problem on the level of Adi-Bhuta, no problem on the level of Adi-Daiva. Otherwise, if you break some rules, if you break the principles of harmony, if you break, this principle of sacrifice, then immediately we have some problems. What kind of problems? On the level of Adi-Atma. Adi-Atmika klesha means the suffering from body and mind. If you break these rules on the level of society, then we have some social problems. That's Adi-Bhautika klesha, second level of suffering. And if you break some rules in the connection with the demigods or the universe at large, then we have problems which is called Adi-Daivika klesha, different earthquakes, tsunamis, drought, whatever, hurricanes, it's all Adi-Daivika. So that's the topic of my presentation. And Srila Prabhupada liked to present Krishna consciousness not only in a religious way, but also as a scientific science. Because he used to say that it's not only religion, it's also science. That's why in 1974, Srila Prabhupada, oops, something doesn't work. What happens? It doesn't switch. Anything wrong? Huh? You check the connection. Oh, just 1 second. Okay. Just hold on. All right, should be fine. No, it doesn't work again. It's very strange. Now the screen is duplicated. Well, I'll restart it again. Oh, so now it should be fine. Yeah, now it's fine. It's working okay. By 1974, Srila Prabhupada established Bhaktivedanta Institute. And he asked all his disciples, who are scientists in the world to engage their scientific knowledge in the Krishna conscious presentation. So he wanted to present Krishna consciousness not only as a religion but also as a science. I'm not a scientist, but I like this kind of presentations, and that's why I'm trying to follow the footsteps of those people who are trying to present Krishna consciousness as a science, and trying to present it like this. So what does Bhaktivedanta Institute do? They are trying to do the synthesis of science and religion. Generally, scientists and religionists, they don't like each other so much. There was always some fight between people who represent science and people who represent religion. But actually, it's a completely artificial thing, because Vedas are synthesis of science and religion, because science generally studies matter. So present-day science studies matter, and we got some information from Vedas how a world is constructed, how it is designed. So it's quite scientific presentation. Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya, it's a kind of science which shows us how world is combined, how it is working. 3 modes, 5 elements, time factor. And the religion shows us some metaphysical features of the world. So in reality, they are all connected. But in our society, in the modern society, religion and science are kind of in different positions. That's why they don't like each other so much. But Srila Prabhupada wanted them to somehow work together. So we can say religion without knowledge often turns into fundamentalism and produces violence instead of divine love. And science without spirituality and morality is, we can say, one-sided, lopsided, and brings dangerous side effects, destroying ecology and health. Some people tend to seek truth with the help of science, others prefer to take to spiritual paths. So there is a great need to take the best of both worlds for the benefit of all living entities. And of course, we are trying to do that on the basis of Vedas. Vedas are revealed to the world by the sages and transmitted from the past through the unbroken chain of teachers and disciples. And of course, natural question arises, how much can we trust the Vedas? And there is one interesting quote in Rig Veda. It says, I offer my respect to the divine sun, whose rays travel with a speed of 2,202 yojanas per half of the nimesha. So if you don't have the key to this mysterious statement, we can't, get its true meaning. So what are these yojanas and nimeshas? They are Vedic measurements for space and time. So 1 yojana is approximately 13 kilometers and 424 meters. And 1 nimesha is a small fraction of a second, and 24 hours contain 4,000 and 5,000 nimeshas. So by calculation, we can come to the conclusion that the speed of light is approximately 300,000 kilometers per second. So science came to this conclusion only in 1975. But Rig Veda already contained that information. But since it is mentioned in such a very hidden way, modern people, they can't get a clue. What actually Vedas give us? We know that the other name for Vedas is Vidya. And Vidya is a root for vision. Vision, video, so ability to see. So Veda gives us vision. So in English you say, when you understand, you say, I see. I see means, I understand. So seeing means understanding, not just, physical contact with the object. So what do we see through the eyes of Vedas? We can see how the laws govern our life. And actually there are 4 groups of laws that rule the world. The first group of laws is, we can say, inorganic laws. It's mechanics, physical and chemical laws. That's what we study in school and universities. It's more or less clear. The second group of laws is organic laws. It's biological laws for living organisms. They are less predictable than material elements. They have more freedom. And then the third group of laws is laws of human society, when the consciousness becomes more developed and people become less predictable than animals or dead matter. And that's a place where they get some, freedom of choice. They make decisions on the basis of their values. They make choices, and they have responsibilities because they have developed intelligence. And it's very important. And actually, people consider this kind of laws are much higher than the laws of just laws of physics, mechanics. For example, if somebody steals something from somebody, somebody takes the purse from somebody's pockets and put it in his pocket. From the point of view of material law, nothing happened. The energy still exists, either in your pocket or in my pocket. But people become agitated. Why? Because the law of morality was broken, which is very, very subtle. It means that the law of morality is much higher than physical law. Otherwise, people wouldn't bother, It doesn't matter in your pocket and my pocket, who cares, But people care because the law of morality is very subtle and it's close to the soul. It's more important for us. And the fourth group of laws, it's spiritual laws. Laws that don't fit into modern science. That's very difficult to prove them, empirically, like the law of karma, the law of reincarnation, but still it exists. It's a subtle law. So let us try to analyze who is human being based on this fourth group of laws. So human being is a combination of gross and subtle matter and also spirit. So if we analyze our gross body, it consists of five material elements, or we can say five stages of matter. The solid matter is called earth, and it is responsible for the principle of form or structure. And in our body it is represented by bones. Bones is earth. It gives us structure. Then liquid matter, what Krishna calls jal or water. So water means different liquids like blood, whatever, lymph inside our body. Then fire is a thermal energy. In our body it is represented in the form of acids. Acids, they help us to digest food, and fire is an element which is responsible for transformation. So earth is a principle of structure. Water is a principle of shipping. So water from the mountains, it carries minerals to the fields. So if you want to eat something, if you want to take medicine, you can't do it without water. You have to drink some water. So water helps us, to ship things, to deliver them to some different other places. Then the fire, as I mentioned, acids in the body, they help to transform things. Metabolism. So without fire you can't change anything. And people who have some fire temperament, they are those people who change something in society. They have enough power. And there is a fire of digestion. Krishna says Vaishvanara, it's a fire of digestion. Also there is a fire of buddhi, intelligence, which helps us to digest different ideas. If a person doesn't understand anything, it means that his fire of intelligence is not strong enough. So he needs, some more fire to digest things. Otherwise, they become problems. Problems means those things which are not digested by our intelligence. Then the air. Air is a gaseous matter, and in the body it is represented as a pressure. So with the help of air in the body, things are under some pressure. That's why there is blood pressure. So it all comes from the air. And space or ether, akash, it's like an accommodation. So ether accommodates everything else. You can't see it, but it just carries sound, and it's very subtle. It's the most subtle, and it just gives accommodations to other more gross elements. And our subtle body, the mind, manas. It is responsible for different emotions and material desires. And mind has only two functions, sankalpa, vikalpa, accept what is pleasant for the senses, and vikalpa means reject things which are not pleasant for the senses. Then intelligence, or buddhi, it's rational thinking. Well, it has also a few functions, like memory, because without memory, intelligence cannot function, like computer. It cannot function without memory. It has no RAM, no functioning. So it has memory, it has a viveka shakti. Viveka shakti means the ability to distinguish between things and analyze them. Then samshaya means doubt. It's the next function of intelligence. So you need it because otherwise, if there is no doubt, you can be easily cheated by other people. So you have to test things that comes from samshaya, from this doubts. And also sleep, because without sleep, without rest, intelligence cannot function. If you don't sleep 1 night, 2 nights, your intelligence will become very dull. So, the sleep is another function of intelligence. And intelligence is responsible for rational thinking. So, mind is responsible for, feeling. Intelligence is responsible for thinking. And false ego is responsible for willing. It's a willpower. And it's also bodily identification. Okay, so this is gross body, this is subtle body. And then the things are somehow alive, and we don't know why. Because there is a consciousness inside it. So consciousness is like electricity, which electrifies the whole system, like computer, we can say it's a hardware and software. But it works only because there is electricity and there is a willpower of the user. Otherwise, without him, it doesn't work. So we can say that these two bodies, gross body and subtle body. Gross body is like a hardware, and subtle body is like a software. And the soul is like a user, the one who operates the system. And these two bodies we just analyzed, they have a few necessities. Shastra states that gross body needs eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And subtle body requires information, knowledge, emotions through social interaction, and creativity. That's actually the food for the subtle body. That's why people have education in the society. That's why they want to know what happened, what is the news. They're searching in the internet, reading books, watching TV. They need some information. It's a food for the mind. And they need some emotional exchange, they need friendship, family, like that, and that's why they feel somehow enlivened. They feel some emotional support from them. So it's all the need of the mind and intelligence. And false ego, wants to demonstrate that I also, can do something. I can create something like God. So people, play violin, they draw, they, do something else. They do something creative just to manifest their ego. And depending how effective society is in serving the demands of this body, like food, sleep, family relations, mating, and defending. If society is very effective in these 4 areas, then this society is more or less well-to-do society. And also, as I mentioned, subtle body requires some knowledge, it requires some emotional exchange, it requires some creativity. That's why people have culture. Culture, different societies, different places where they can interact. So once again, we can try to see the human being as a combination of few things. So we can imagine it, and we can see it like this balloon. So basket is like a gross body which goes down. Balloon is a soul which goes up, always trying to go up, and straps that connect them constitute subtle body. Or, as I mentioned before, user is a soul, consciousness, software is a subtle body, and hardware is a gross body. And the only interesting thing, the only, we can say, problem is that many people who are materialists, they can't understand that the soul or consciousness comes not from the brain. Because, they were trained in school that, our consciousness is a subtle, we could say, subtle product of our brain. And they say that there are neurons in the brain, they interact. There are some subtle electrical impulses in the brain, and they produce consciousness. But actually, it's a pretty, superficial statement. To say that the brain produces consciousness is the same like to say that a TV set produces movie. It's not like this. This TV set is just, it's an interface. It's just media, just to, to show it. But it's not the origin. So somebody can say that, if he, damage somebody's brain, they hit somebody on the head, he can lose memory, he can lose consciousness. Well, of course, if you break TV, also there's no more cinema. But it doesn't mean that cinema comes from the TV. It just goes through TV, but not from TV. So many people, they don't understand these things, because materialists, they try to explain everything, based on matter. But we got some more subtle information. So brain is just an interface between the soul inside of our hearts and external world. So we can say that brain is the original computer. So computer is nothing new. People can only imitate what is already there in the nature. So the production of computer is just imitation of brain, nothing else. So it's not new, nothing to be proud of. It's already made by Krishna, original computer, our brain. And we just try to, do our own thing and say that we are great people. Next point to understand is that how the soul, eternal soul, is connected to the temporary body. And this is done with the help of Paramatma, Supersoul. In this picture, you can see that soul on the other, on the left, physical and subtle body on the right, and Paramatma is a connecting factor. As I mentioned in the very beginning, Adiyagya. Adiyagya is a principle which connects everything, makes system work. Should we believe in Paramatma, or are there any symptoms of Paramatma in the body? Yes, there are some symptoms. So instincts, like animals doing intelligent things without education. You can ask the spider, how he managed to create a spider's web. It's a pretty complicated, arrangement actually. If you ask any engineer, can you, make this kind of web, just trying to get some thread from your stomach and do it like this, nobody will be able to do it. But the spider, without any education, he's doing that. He doesn't even know how he's doing that. But because Paramatma is giving intelligence from inside, or the cat who got sick, he's trying to find some herb, some healing herb just by sniffing, without any knowledge of medicine or biology or botanics, and the cat finally finds, that healing herb, eats it, and becomes recovered. How is that? It means there is somebody who knows the healing properties of the herb and the need of the cat. And he just, connects them. That's it. That's Paramatma. How birds without, knowing geography find, south or north. In winter time they go south, in summertime they go north. How is it? They don't know anything about geography because they are led by Paramatma. There are so many things in the nature, so much intelligence, but these living entities who are doing quite intelligent things, they don't have any formal education. And it is not their intelligence, it is intelligence of Paramatma. The other symptom of Paramatma is intuition, the sixth sense, we can say that something has not happened yet, but we somehow feel that it is going to happen. It's Paramatma is giving us some device. Then inspiration. Many things, even in science, were revealed just by inspiration. This famous chemist from Russia, Mendeleev, he just seen his table of chemical elements in his dream. It was just revealed to him. And many scientists, they actually declare that they got some revelation. It's also from Paramatma. Because he says, Paramatma says, Sarvasya chaham hridisanya vishto matah smritim gyama pohanam cha. I am situated in everyone's heart, and from me comes knowledge, forgetfulness, and memory. So it's all comes from him. Conscience, it's a feeling of guilt for breaking some laws of harmony. It's also, like Paramatma gives a feeling of remorse that you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't act like this. And control over complicated mechanism of the body, like metabolism, sensual perception, like that. It's all done by Paramatma. If you feel hungry, you just, take something, eat, and forget about it. But it's a whole difficult, complicated process of metabolism starts, and it's all done by Paramatma. We practically don't know anything about it. What kind of ferments we should, generate by this pancreas, like that. It's all done by Paramatma. So just, by the simple examples, we can understand that there is some higher intelligence inside us. That's Paramatma, which, connects everything together. And Vedas present a holistic view of the world, how things are interconnected. And before we act, we have to know this. This is called Sambandhi Jnana, how things are interconnected. So first of all, like Srimad Bhagavatam established the absolute truth. He starts from the top. If you take Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Verse 1, first it establishes Vasudeva as a governing principle of everything. Everything starts from him. And Vedanta Sutra also states Om Athato Brahma Jigyasa. So we have to inquire about the absolute truth. And absolute truth is what? It's from where everything emanates. It means that, what is it, aphorism, second one, Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Om Janmadhyaya Syata. Everything comes from the absolute truth. So what comes from the absolute? Matter and spirit, basically. Two realities, material reality and spiritual reality. Absolute truth consists of three factors: Brahmiti, Paramatmiti, Bhagavaniti, Shabditi. That's God as a person, God as a supreme intelligence, Paramatma, and God as Brahman, energy or light. And the matter comes from the Brahman. Brahman is impersonal feature of the absolute. That's why matter is impersonal. So matter comes from Brahman. And the souls come from Bhagavan. Bhagavan is a personal feature, and we are persons because we are coming from him. So from different features of Bhagavan, different realities come. Brahman comes from, matter comes from Brahman. Jiva, soul, come from Bhagavan. And matter possesses three qualities, three gunas: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And matter is being moved by time. Time is a force, Kala chakra, and Kala represents the will of the Lord. That's why the matter is rotating. Planets are rotating, sun is rotating, moon is rotating, everything is rotating. Because Kala chakra means will. Everything is rotating like that. Why does it rotate? Just to give us different experience. So we get, completeness. It's in Vedic astrology, in Jyotish, it is stated that when moon goes around the zodiac, there are 27 nakshatras, and every nakshatra contains 4 padas, or 4 quarters, we can say, and 27 by 4 means 108. That's a principle of completeness. So when the moon goes through all 108 padas of each nakshatra, it creates all different varieties of moods, through which we are coming in our life. So that's why we need this experience. We need to be rotated just to have different experience, and ultimately, to be fed up with this material life, just be frustrated and choose another path to Krishna. So matter has its function to give us some experience. And the soul also possesses 3 properties, like Satchitananda. It's eternal, it's full of knowledge and bliss. But when the soul is connected with the matter, this nature of the soul cannot be realized. It can be, the soul in the material life, the soul cannot experience this eternity, knowledge and bliss. The soul can experience only when it contacts the Supreme Lord. Only. But when we contact him through karma with matter, we experience just different modes. We experience what is the life of ignorance, what is the life of passion, what is the life of goodness, nothing else. That's why Jiva, spirit soul, ultimately gets frustrated through this karma, through this association with matter. And if you want to nullify our karma, you have to, remove, when we have to, fix our attention on Krishna. In this way, the karma becomes destroyed little by little. First of all, as I mentioned on this scheme, comes the source and controller of all. So if we are sane people, we can see easily that nobody is completely free and independent. People are saying, how can you prove that there is some God? If you can prove that there is some God, you have to understand that there is some controlling factor. At least everybody is controlled by time, and nobody can deny it, No scientist can deny the force of time. He can deny God, but he can't deny time. And we know that time is a will of the Lord. So by that indirect thing, we can understand that there is some force which governs us with time. So everybody is under the control to some degree. The laws of nature, the laws of state, they control us. So ultimately, all are under the control of this eternal time. So all these forces that control us originate from the supreme controller called Ishvara or Vishnu. So why should there be any control at all? So if government doesn't control the citizens, then there will be chaos, and who will want to live in a state where there is no law? So control is necessary, and this controller, the producer of the show, he can remain behind the curtains if he doesn't want to be seen. That's why people can use these telescopes. They can challenge God by sending this Challenger. It's the name of this space vehicle, Challenger. So we are trying to investigate the space by challenging. So you can't understand cosmos just by challenging God, but it's a way modern people do. And this unseen controller somehow he connected everybody and everything with the law of karma, with different gunas, and we can easily see it. It's like a food chain. It's perfectly arranged in nature. It's one kind of the connection. Like, the grasshopper eats the grass, the frog eats, the grasshopper, the snake eats the frog, the eagle eats the snake. Then, eagle drops dead on the ground, and, the earth consumes the eagle. Then, he turns into fertilizer, and then again the earth produces grass like that. It's a perfect food chain. Krishna connected everybody. Then we can see this connection on the other example. It's like a vision, object of vision, and light. They're all interdependent. Without sun, you can't see the apple. If there is any object, there is an eye, there is a sun, nothing to see. If there is a sun and there is an object but no eye, nobody to see. So the seer, what is to be seen, and the one who gives you the light, they're all interconnected. And they're useless without one another. That's what Srimad Bhagavatam states. So they're all made interdependent by fully independent God, the source of all energies. And scientists, they also say that there is some source, but they call it singularity. They say that the source of all energy and universe is singularity, which is indescribable. So how this indescribable singularity is better than inconceivable God? So inconceivable singularity, inconceivable God, they're equal. But with the help of God, we can explain everything, but with the help of singularity, we can't explain anything. Life is just useless. So singularity is impersonal, God is personal. Matter is impersonal, consciousness is personal. So matter comes from impersonal feature of God, Brahman, and consciousness comes from the personal feature of God, Bhagavan. And sometimes people ask interesting questions. So who has created the creator? There is no use to inquire who has created the creator, since by definition he is eternal. Anadir Adir Govinda. Anadir, he is a Adir, he is a source of everything, but he is Anadir. He doesn't have any source by himself. So Veda state that he is a cause of all causes, although he doesn't have any other origin but himself. It is the basic principle of any concept, be it a singularity or God. Some basic principle, it is never in question, it's constant. You can't question it, it's just a point of reference. So any concept is based on something, and this something is not the point of discussion, it's just a point of reference, that's all. So if the concept makes sense and works, it means that basic assumption was correct, actually. So God is a Ishvara, as a controller. He is present everywhere, in tiny atom or in gigantic universe. It's all pervaded by Him. That's why actually in the atom there is also some movement. This electron, is spinning around the nucleus, because actually it's Paramatma spinning his disk. There's a movement inside the atom just because of Krishna. And cosmos in Greek means order. But who needs an order if there is no one in charge? Only some person, intelligent persons, need some order. Originally, when Western science started to develop, originally they used to think that the world is very simple in nature. They used to think that there are only chemical elements pushed by physical forces. But when they invented electronic microscope, they discovered very complex structures of the living cells and DNA molecules. So that they came to the conclusion that apart from the particles and forces, there is also perfectly arranged information within the matter. And without information in the cells, matter can't develop, without these DNA molecules. So the last step is just to accept the source of all that information. And scientists, they are reluctant to do this step. So they say that yes, there are some material elements, that there are some forces, and there is some information inside the matter. But who put this information into the matter? They're reluctant to do this step. So life turned out to be irreducibly complex and not simple at all, as they originally thought. And any complex systems, they originate from even more complex source. No matter how complex is a machine, which is created by human is still more complex than this machine. A human being cannot create anything more complex than himself. So origin is always more complex than the production. So these machines, they can't evolve without intelligent guidance. And this DNA is similar to computer program that determines our parameters and functions. So we can say that DNA is God's program for our biological life. And evolutionists, they state that since there are similarities between the species, it means that they evolved from one another. But actually, cars may also look similar, but it doesn't mean that big car evolved from the small car. Well, it simply means that they were produced by the same designer who used similar patterns, but also considered different desires of drivers, actually. Some people who criticize this intelligent design, they argue. They take some statement from the one who is an advocate of this intelligent design concept, like a human eyes is perfectly designed, therefore cannot come through the evolution. And they say, yeah, but he says it with his spectacles on. So by this they're trying to refute, his own statements. Some other people say it's like this Richard Dawkins, it's a famous critic of this intelligent design. Just finding some imperfection in creation, they say it's a fault on the part of creator. So they say, well, if it is intelligent design, how it is so intelligent that there are more than 4,000 genetical diseases, so it means God is imperfect. But if we consider the law of karma, cause and effect, then these apparent imperfections are quite reasonable. Because karma is dynamic. So you can't say that poor vision means that the God is imperfect. Poor vision just means my bad karma, that's it. But the eye is still created by God. So if I have imperfect eyes, it's not an imperfection on the part of God. It's just my imperfection because I use the eyes improperly. So that's why my eyesight became weak. That's all. So law of karma exists to teach us responsibility. We can do something, then we forget about it, and then after a while, some reaction comes, and we wonder why. Krishna wants us to teach us some responsibility. So law of karma is the same as golden rule. So if you want something good from people, you do good to others. Otherwise, if you shoot somebody, he shoots somebody else, and then, you know, you're also in trouble because of a chain reaction. So this law of karma is teaching us some responsibility. We may say that hands in shackles may look like imperfection of creator, but in context of the law of karma, cause and effect, it looks like a perfect arrangement. So it's better when our hands are free. But if I see that they are in shackles, it means that not the fault of God, but it's my fault. I misbehave, and that's why, you know, my hands are in shackles now. So in this way, Vedas establish the controller. So he is controlling matter and souls by this law of cause and effect, by the law of karma. So in this way, Vedas establish the controller. Now, what is it to be controlled? Spirit, consciousness, and lifeless matter. Otherwise, what is the use to be controller if there is nothing to control? There must be something to control. And again, we go back to this picture. So God controls souls through time, matter, and karma. And what is matter and why does it exist? According to Vedas, material nature is just a playground for the souls who are rotating in the cycle of reincarnation. They're just playing here. Souls rotate on the wheel of time and samsara, pushed by the material desires and karma. And as long as we have these material desires, we'll go on with this samsara chakra. Mrityu samsara vartmani, we still come back to this material cycle of birth and death. Some people say that reincarnation is just kind of, you know, Hindu belief, that's all. But actually it's a law of nature, you know. There was a caterpillar. Then for a while, you know, caterpillar was in the cocoon, and then, you know, it turns into a butterfly. It's just, you know, it's a reincarnation just in front of our eyes, you know. The caterpillar was crawling, the butterfly is flying, it's the same living entity. So it's not a Hindu belief, it's just a law of nature. And reincarnation first starts within our bodies. We can say internal reincarnation. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Dehinosmin yadhadehi kaumaram yavanam jaratat hadehantara prapir dhiras datarnamukheti. So there is a reincarnation going on within our body. Then it goes outside, the same kind of process. So in this way, we see that, you know, some people who come into this life and they look like, you know, absolutely innocent people, innocent children, but then something can happen. You know, why? If it's just innocent child, you know, didn't do anything wrong, but some children, they have some, you know, bone diseases, quite heavy like that. How can the perfect God, you know, punish innocent child? You know, you can't figure out, you know, how it works without the law of karma, without this law of reincarnation. So this reincarnation and karma is created by the influence of three modes of nature, and these modes they act upon our consciousness and they produce different states of consciousness. So these three modes, they are like ropes, because guna means rope, which is tying us up. So three modes, three gunas, they cover our consciousness and condition us in a certain way. They are like color filters that cover the light. Light is white, but if you put some colorful filter, then, you know, the light becomes yellow, red, or blue, or whatever. So different modes, they push us to be engaged in a particular kind of activity. They interact and they produce different personalities, different moods. So we can give brief characteristics of them. So goodness means morality, mercy, cleanliness, knowledge, responsibility, truthfulness, simplicity, satisfaction, happiness. That's a person in the mode of goodness. The person in the mode of passion, you know, he's creative, he wants so much, desire to expand and accumulate different ambitions, he can break some morality for selfish purposes. And the person in the mode of ignorance, they are morose, unhappy, slow, they can have some addictions like take drugs, alcohol, they can smoke, sleep too much, they're very inert, unable to reach his goal, tend to be violent. That's all properties of the mode of ignorance. So, and they have a hierarchical, there's a hierarchy. The mode of goodness, it's a higher of all of them. Passion is in the middle, and ignorance is, we can say, in the bottom. And in this way, the universe is constructed. Those who are in ignorance, demons, they are, down on the bottom. Human beings, they are in the mode of passion. It's a middle, Bhumandala, it's a middle level. And sages, demigods, they are in goodness. So they are in the, we can say, the higher world. And human beings, they can interact with all of them, and in this way they produce their future. And if they are doing something in ignorance, they commit violence, then, they also become a victim in their next life, like this. And if people do so many different things, like, for regulative principle, if they break them all, and then, little by little, they produce, they create, I mean to say, they turn the world into hell. Or we can say they are sowing the branch they're sitting on. It's a crazy thing to do, but people are doing that because we are living inside ecology, inside the world. And people destroy ecology by modern technologies. They destroy their own health, body, they pollute their mind when they take drugs, alcohol, like that, or when they see some horror movies or something else. So they feed their mind with some tamasic food or passionate food, and in this way they have disturbance of mind and destroy their body. When they deal with different other living entities, in the ignorance, the relationship break. When they do it in goodness, then relationships are maintained, because sattva means maintenance. So when people understand these kind of things, they can get the energy from God, and then they send it to God again. It's a kind of, we can say, vertical energy flow. We got it from God on top, and then we send it back again. So that's yoga. That's connection. But when we don't know where energy comes from, we tend to get energy from God, but then we use it just in this horizontal cycle. Just in the society, we exchange different services, we exchange different goods, like that. But then we create karma, because we are using God's energy without offering it to Him. So in this way we create this karma. And the only way to destroy karma is to understand the principle of Ishavasya. Ishavasya medam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat. So everything comes from God, and everybody has its share. Everybody has some share to consume, to enjoy, and it's not sinful because it's given by God. But if you want to get more, then we violate the principle of goodness, then we become passionate, then karma starts to grow like that. Material world is our field of activity, and Bhagavad Gita describes our field of activity on the 3 levels, as I mentioned in the very beginning. Adhyatma, it's a level of mind and body. We can say it's a microcosmos. Then Adibhuta, it's a level of society, including all living entities. It's a mesocosmos, in the middle stage. And Adidaiva, it's a level of the universe. It's macrocosmos. So you can see it like this. 3 spheres of material activity. So soul is inside. First it is covered by body and mind. That's Adi Atma. Then we are in the society. That's Adi Bhuta. And then we are in the cosmos in large. That's Adidaiva. And all these 3 spheres, they are pervaded by the laws of harmony, which come from Adiyagya, from Krishna. So if you treat our body and mind in the mode of goodness, then our mind is peaceful, our body is healthy, no problem. So, but if we treat our mind and body in ignorance and passion, immediately some problems arise. So problem means that we do something wrong, like you are driving on the road and say you fall asleep, and immediately you go aside, and your truck, and your car starts to jump, and you immediately wake up. All this jumping, it means that you get off the road. So problem means that we get off the road. So there shouldn't be any suffering, because the soul is ananda by nature. Suffering is absolutely unnatural for us. And if we suffer, it means only one thing, that we deviated from God. It's like a signal. So mode of passion, mode of ignorance, they produce different kinds of suffering, different kind of klesha, adhyatmika klesha, adibhautika klesha, adidaivika klesha. And when we act in goodness, then we act according to the God's law. As Paramatma established all these laws. And when we offer everything to Krishna, then this goodness becomes transcendental, Shuddha Sattva. So in a similar way, on this next level, if we act in the mode of goodness, respecting other people, not cheating them, treating them nicely, then, society is maintained nicely, family. But if you treat your family members or your society members or your, colleagues at your job in a mode of ignorance or passion, then, some disturbance arises naturally. Because it's established by God like this. So through these modes, through the different levels, Krishna is showing us, act like humans, be good, it's a goodness. And then when you are in goodness, then you can easily engage in the devotional service. Because in Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated, Sattvayaj Brahma Darshana. Sattvayaj Brahma Darshana means that from the mode of goodness you can see spiritual nature. When you are in the passion and ignorance, you can have some religious faith, but not vision. And you can't follow anything strictly. You can just have religious faith. And unfortunately, many religious people nowadays, they have some religious faith, but they don't have knowledge. And they are lacking this mode of goodness, because they don't follow these 4 regulative principles that we follow. And in this way, their religion remains, we can say, sentimental. It's not based on knowledge, and it is not supported by practice. And that's why people commit sins, and they remorse, and they commit sins, and they do some penance, and again and again and again. They can't get out of this vicious circle, because simply they are not maintained by goodness. Goodness means be stable in spiritual life. And as I mentioned before, on the 3rd level, level of cosmos, if we are, in Vedic civilization, people used to, offer yagyas to demigods like that. Nowadays, people don't do it, and we see that there are so many natural catastrophes, so many disasters, and even if there is no disaster, demigods, they punish us in a slightly different way. According to Ayurveda, the problem of different pandemonias or different diseases is the lack of prana in the food. And why is the lack of prana in the food? Because demigods, they just turn away from human beings. And that's why people grow food, and there's a protein, anything, but not prana, not enough prana. And that's why people become weak, and they are subject to diseases. So in this way, we can say it's in a subtle way, adidaivika klesha. In Satya Yuga, people used to live so long, for hundreds of thousands of years. Why? Because, they were completely in the mode of goodness. And they could eat, very nice food stuff, which contained not only, fats, proteins, and amino acids, but prana. Prana is it's a main thing. It's not material element. People can't relate to it, but actually what gives people strength, real strength, and it creates a very strong immune system. And when people don't do any more yagyas, they become weaker, weaker, and weaker. And they say, well, we grow this crop, that crop, okay, that's fine. But still there is a lack of prana. Because prana, you can't do it by GMO. you can produce it just given by God or by demigods. So we can see that you are in this, we can say, cosmos, which is arranged by God in a particular way. And these three levels of existence are maintained by adiyagya, as I mentioned, the principle of sacrifice, and this is Paramatma. And when we use our body, mind, social relations and position in the universe in the service of the Lord, then we spiritually progress. And Supersoul as adiyagya and connects everything around. So we can say that our universe rotates around the pole star, which is abode of Vishnu. So we can say that the level of Adidaiva, the center of the Adidaiva level is pole star, Vishnu on that level, on that planet. So if you take this level of existence, then Vishnu as Paramatma is the center of universe. Then, if you take the level of society, society is maintained by some kind of morality or ideology which serves as an ideal or center. And where does this morality come from? Again, from Krishna, because he is the source of all these principles. So Krishna is the center of this Adidaiva universe. He is the center of society, because Varnashrama, what does it mean? Varnashrama means that you use your occupation in service of the Lord. So he is the heart of Varnashrama, right? Brahmanas are the head, Kshatriyas are the hands, Vaishyas are the belly, and Shudras are the legs. But Krishna is the soul. So he is the soul of this Adibhuta level of society. And also the level of the body and mind, Adi Atma again, it's kept alive by the presence of the soul and Supersoul. Again, no matter which level we take, Krishna is in the center. He's in the center of body and mind, he's in the center of society, as different laws of morality, and he's the center of the universe, like this pole star, like that. So God in different forms maintains our bodies, society, and cosmos. So we just have to see, we just have to learn to see Him, everywhere with the eyes of knowledge. That's our only task, we can say. And that's why spiritual knowledge is so important in human society. In Manu Samhita, the Manu, the head of the mankind, he said that the most precious thing you can give the person is a Veda, knowledge. Because without knowledge, human being is no better than Dvipada Pashu, it's a two-legged animal. So animals, they can eat, they can sleep, they can mate, defend, but they can't study. They got some basic knowledge for their, survival from the Paramatma, but they can't consciously progress. And human beings, they can consciously progress, and for that they need knowledge, Sambandha Gyan, and when they get Sambandha Gyan, they can apply it practically. This constitutes Abhideya, and when they practice Abhideya correctly, then they get Prayojana. Prayojana means Krishna Prema. So in this way, if we understand our position in a scientific way, then life becomes more conscious, and our process, our practice become more conscious, and in this way we can steadily progress towards Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. We got some time for questions, discussions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for such a wonderful class today. I really liked the wonderful examples, concepts, and the equally beautiful PowerPoint presentation that you had. I have a small request that you had mentioned about the fire of intelligence.
Digestion. Intelligence.
Intelligence, yeah. And so, can you elaborate a little bit more on, since fire is gross, but our intelligence is subtle, so how do the two interact?
Ayurveda states that there are 13 kinds of fire. Some of them gross, some of them subtle. And when you see the flames, the bonfire, you see it's like a gross element. But as I mentioned, the fire of digestion is a subtle one, because you don't see any flames in your stomach, right? But still, the acids, they don't look like fire, acids, but they act like fire, because, they digest things, they transform them. And there is still more, we can say, fine fire. It's a fire of intelligence, buddhi. And in Vedic astrology, in Jyotish, if you know anything about it, there are different houses, bhavas. And the fifth bhava is responsible for digestion. And also it represents intelligence. Because intelligence digests idea and stomach digests food. And you might hear the words like food for the soul or food for the mind. So different ideas are food for the mind. And any food is to be digested, right? And digestion is always being done by fire. So be it, like flame or, on your gas stove, you cook every day like that, so you use this kind of fire. Then, you eat the food, then there is another kind of fire inside your stomach. And when you got some ideas, you need some other, even more subtle kind of fire to digest it. So digestion is a universal principle and is connected with the element of fire. So if you know anything about Vedic astrology, the fifth house is connected with the sign of Leo. Leo is Simha. Simha is a fiery sign. So digestion is done by fire. So in any way, whether it be individual intelligence, it requires fire to digest ideas, or be it a stomach, which requires some fire to digest the food, it's still the same elements. It becomes just more and more subtle. Like in the Srimad Bhagavatam, you may find the description of Himalayas, these mountains. As we know, the Himalayas are about 8 kilometers, something 7 by 8. But in Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated that actually Himalayas are 80,000 yojas high. What kind of Himalayas are that? It's for demigods. It's a subtle Himalayas. Like that. And outside of the universe, there is another Himalaya, original Himalayas, where Lord Shiva resides. It's Mahakala Loka or Siddha Loka. So it's spiritual Himalayas, then subtle Himalayas for demigods, and our gross Himalayas in India. So everything has its different dimensions. Gross fire, subtle fire, even more subtle fire. Okay.
I was wondering if you can explain where does ether, which is I think another name for vacuum, right? Exists within our body. I mean, you explained those things, but like I could not catch the ether.
It's not in our body. Our body exists in ether. Oh. So as I mentioned, it just accommodates everything. It just gives space. It accommodates all other elements.
I had another question about, you mentioned about the prana, and is the prasadam that we have has prana. I mean, I'm just trying to understand the analogy between this, the source of disease is the lack of prana, and then just like, because the way I understand prasadam is like the way it's kind of cooked, like with the mentality of the cook and all that goes inside that, and that's the reason why it becomes healthier, right? So, and is that, when you say prana, are you referring to that mentality which is get packed in the prasadam, or what, like, what is actually prana?
Not really, but we can say that for Vaishnavas, as there is a famous song, Radha Krishna Prana Mora, Jugala Kishora. So for Vaishnavas, Radha Krishna is Prana Mora. My prana, Radha Krishna is my prana. It's my, we can say, energy of life, which nourishes me on the spiritual level. So for Vaishnavas, actually life is much easier, because they are directly connected to Krishna, and all other entities, they just go through material nature, through karma. And when I mentioned prana, of course, I mentioned prana as a subtle energy of the universe, which nourishes everybody. But in Kali Yuga, since people become more sinful, they are lacking prana. That's why their life becomes shorter, like that. And those, foodstuffs which carry prana, water, air, and foodstuff, they carry prana. In Kali Yuga, people, they pollute the environment, and all this prana becomes mixed with all this, dirty stuff like that. And it is originally there, but as different yugas progress, this prana becomes less and less. and that's why people, become more and more short-lived. And in nature, in Satya Yuga, there was no economy in a modern sense like that. Human beings, they just, they got something from the forest. It's natural food, and this food was very rich. It's prana. You could just, eat fruits only and be perfectly healthy, just by prana. But now, when we are lacking prana, we need so much protein, like that. It's like a kind of substitution. But yogis, they just can live by prana, only by prana. Not all of them, but some can do. So prana is, we can say, original food. But then, when we are lacking prana, then these material elements, they become for us more important. Okay.
So Maharaj, it's not related exactly to the slides you have presented, but I see that you have kind of synthesized lot of knowledge of science and Vedas and Bhagavatam and put them wonderful slides actually, the connections you have made. So my question is, in Bhagavatam they are mentioning Anu, that's the atom, as something which is clearly visible when you see the yogi saw that when the light's coming from the window sill, the things which particles, and we know those particles are much larger compared to even the microorganisms. So what is that Anu they are talking about? Is it something they mean the Anu is like that? Or what are they really talking about, that Anu?
As far as I understand, they mean so-called hexatom. It means like 6 atoms together, something like that. Yeah, I think it's a combination, not just one atom, but a combination of atoms, which is visible by eyes. But I can't give you, detailed explanation that it's because, I'm not a scientist and I'm not into that. Well, I'm just, trying to present things in a scientific way, But, I can't comment on that one, what we actually see. But as far as I understand, it's just a combination of atoms that we can see, not just single atom. They call it paramanu. Paramanu. It's not just, anu means just one atom, paramanu means a combination of atoms. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for a wonderful class and scientific presentation of Krishna consciousness. I have a question, like you were mentioning about the intelligence, and one of the function is sleeping, something you were mentioning. So how it is related to intelligence, the sleeping?
As I mentioned, there are 5 functions, 5 properties of intelligence. One is distinctive power, Viveka Shakti, then doubt, Samshaya, then memory, Smriti, then what is it? Sleep, Swapna, and something else. The ability to determine the nature of objects, something like that. Like Sankhya, something like that. So sleep is, we can say, a resource. So if you don't sleep, if you don't rest, then, as I mentioned, if you don't sleep for 1-2 nights, you can't think properly. Intelligence becomes very dull. It just fades away. So, and it's a kind of natural state, like you see. Every day we go to sleep in the night. Every day of Brahma, the most intelligent living being, the head of our sampradaya, he also goes to sleep. Then even Mahavishnu, another name for him is Tamasi. Tamasi means the sleeping, the one who is sleeping. He's the origin of all sleep in the universe. He is sleeping, and we are also sleeping, in the spiritual sense. We are like in the oblivion, in state of oblivion. So sleep is a part of life. We can say it's a kind of state which gives us some contact with the Supreme, because when the Brahma's day is over, where do all living entities go? They go back to the body of Vishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and then again via Brahma they again get another body. So in some Upanishad, I don't remember exactly the name, it is mentioned that when we sleep, when the soul sleeps, it goes into the effulgence of Paramatma here. And that's why in the morning you feel refreshed. So like in the end of the day of Brahma, all jivas go to the body of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. So every night, jiva goes into this effulgence which comes from Paramatma. We don't realize it, but it's actually happening. So on all levels, be it a microcosmos of the body, or we can say a macrocosmos of the universe, the same things take place, same processes. So that's why we need some sleep. So actually, we are in the unconscious state, but Krishna is nourishing us during this time. So that's why we can say our intelligence is resurrected, it's nourished by Paramatma, by Krishna. So we cannot say that sleep is just tamasic state. Externally it looks like a tamasic state, but internally something very important is happening. So Paramatma is getting some nourishment, Atma is getting some nourishment from Paramatma. That's why, some time is required. Like a battery, some, accumulator, it just, it runs down, then you have to put it and recharge it again. So every night, the soul gets some recharged from Paramatma. So it requires the sleep state. Otherwise, intelligence is not going to function. Okay.
So just as you described the properties of the intelligence, are they similar for the mind? And does the mind go to sleep ever?
Well, actually, mind, intelligence, and false ego, they function as one. Just for the sake of study, we divide it. We can say that, stomach, bladder and pancreas, we can just describe them separately, or liver, but they don't function separately. They function as one system. Just for the sake of study, we say that's mind. Like we say, there is Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. They are all together. Brahmiti, Paramatmiti, Bhagavaniti. As the Vadanti Tattva Vidas, Tattva Yajnana, Advayam, Brahmiti, Paramatmiti, Bhagavaniti. They are Advayam, they are indivisible. So we just say that they are Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, like three different features, but they all function as one. So in a similar way, the subtle body, it functions as one. But we say, that emotional part of subtle body is mind, thinking part is intelligence. Like, every morning you hear the, your alarm clock, right? And there are two voices in your head. One voice is saying, five more minutes to sleep, Another voice, no, you have to get up, otherwise you'll just be late for job. So the voice which tells you, let's sleep more, it comes from mind. Because the mind is connected to the senses. We want to enjoy, we have to, want to sleep more. And the intelligence is not directly connected to the senses. So it is more connected to the soul, the sense of duty, dharma. So no matter how you feel, you have to get out of your bed and just go to job. So intelligence, it's more cool, we can say.
Prabhuji, also you mentioned about how in mode of ignorance people sleeps too much. In mode of ignorance, so how do you determine for normal sleep and when it's like too much sleep or too less sleep? Is always a question that comes. Or
well, people eat in different quantities. They have different bodies, small bodies, big bodies, different appetites, So some people eat more, some people eat less, and some people sleep more, sleep less. So it's ultimately, you can say, individual choice or individual measure. And the criteria is that, if a person sleeps too much, he becomes very inert, very slow, lazy, like that. It means oversleep. Like overeating. If you overeat, so what do you feel? you feel lazy, you can do anything, oh, immediately. So if you ate right quantity of food, you feel fresh, you feel, you know, surcharged. But if you overeat, immediately, you know this, because overeating comes from passion. I want too much, passion. And if passion is not controlled by goodness, then it turns into ignorance. So in a similar way, you require some sleep, but if you sleep too much, you know, you become too lazy, too relaxed, you know, too inert, you don't have any concentration like that. So like in a similar way as you see that you overate, so you can easily say that I have overslept if you become too relaxed, too lazy.
Thank you. And Prabhu, also in your presentation you are using the word Veda. So it's like when we present to secular audience, is that considered like as Veda is like they not considered as a like Hindu term, or how is your experience when we present in secular audience the word Veda?
It depends on the audience. I am mostly preaching in Russia, and Russian language is very, very close to Sanskrit, especially phonetics, you know. And in Russian, word Veda is very much used. Like you say to know. In Russian we say vedать. Vedать means to know. So for them, Veda is very, very, very spread around word in Russia. So the practically people don't have any problem with relating to this word because it's part of their language. In English, I prefer the word vidya because it's connected with vision, video, like that. So vidya and Veda, they're interchangeable, we can say. So in some audiences you can use Veda and some vidya, but it's not, I mean, it seems to be Hindu, it seems to come from India, but Vedas prove to be universal. So when you, you know, apply it, it works, you know. Like, you know, I'm a Russian man and I go to India for Ayurvedic treatment. So if Ayurvedic treatment is, you know, Indian, so it should, you know, treat only Indian people, you know, it shouldn't work on me. You know. But it helps me because it's universal. You know, Vedic astrology, it works for everybody, not just for Indian people. So in a similar way, the spiritual science, it just works for everybody. It just requires little practice.
Just
I chant Vedic mantra, and you know, Hare Krishna, so we can say it's an Indian mantra. I mean, but I feel, I have less material desires. How is it? You know, it's acting like a medicine. It's universal. Prabhupada used to say it's like fire. You know, fire burns anybody. You know, doesn't care.
I just wanted to ask a very basic question. So the way we understand, I mean, low-level understanding. Yes. So the low-level understanding is that we live in four-dimensional space, right? But actually, I mean, I don't know where is there a place where it explains the creation, how many dimensions it exists into? Dimensions?
Well, we have 3 dimensions. You know, I mean, time. Okay, physical dimensions are 3 and plus time, but there are dimensions of consciousness. Like, you know, now we are thinking about. So, in which dimension is that image in your mind? It's not a physical dimension, right? It's in the dimension of your, we can say, mind. And Taittiriya Upanishad, it states that there are Pancha Kosha, 5 levels of consciousness. Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manamaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, Anandamaya Kosha. And physical universe, it has like this 3 dimensions plus time. But spiritual world, or we can say higher beings like demigods or angels, they don't possess physical bodies. They possess subtle bodies, you know, like mind, intelligence. We know that the body of Brahma consists of pure intelligence. So what kind of dimension is that? So it's, we can say, mental or dimension of intelligence. And we don't see, you know, practically maybe don't see 95% of cosmos because it's subtle in nature. With our eyes and with our telescope we can see just, you know, some physical elements, that's all. And even that puzzles us. But when we reach Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, the description of the universe, we can get mad. What is this? Because it's all on the vision of the demigods, the entities who exist on the, we can say, in a different dimension, but not physical, like we can say subtle dimension, which we don't have access to. Like in Mahabharata, Arjuna's travel to Svargaloka is described. Before the battle of Kurukshetra, he went to see his father Indra on Svargaloka to get his blessings and to get some weapons from him. And it is described how he was traveling. He used to raise to some level, then kind of sit there for a while, meditate, and adapt to different levels, and then go high, and then again, like that. Like if you dive, after a while you need to somehow to balance the pressure inside your head and the pressure in the water. Otherwise, you get a headache. You can get trauma. Or when you go up in plane, your ears become painful because the difference of it's pressure. So in a similar way, when person goes to some particular dimension or some particular level of existence, he needs some time to somehow adapt there. Like children, the world of adult people and the world of children, and they slowly they become integrated in the adult society like that. So in a similar way, just by we can say upgrading our consciousness. It's actually first Srila Prabhupada's book is a journey to other planets, and there he explained how it happens. He says that by upgrading your consciousness, you can go to the other planets, not just by mechanical means, like that. So Arjuna was kind of adjusting to different levels, and then finally, he reached Indraloka. I don't think he reached Indraloka in his physical body. It seems to be that he was meditating under some tree somewhere in the forest, so his physical body remained here, and the subtle body he reached Svargaloka and got some blessing. Then he remained, came out of the meditation, and he was prepared for fight, like that. So when we say about these different dimensions, they all connected with different levels of reality, spiritual reality, subtle material reality, like this mental reality, physical reality, which contains only 3 dimensions multiplied by time.
Prabhuji, can you a little bit share how the preaching in Russia happening as you are
preaching in Russia? In Russia, devotees preach Krishna consciousness in different ways. There are direct ways like Harinam, book distribution, temple programs like that. People distribute invitations to the temples. It's kind of direct preaching, like preaching Krishna consciousness as a religion. But also, as I mentioned, we preach Krishna consciousness in different other ways. Because not so many people are interested in religion. Much more people are interested in knowledge. And Vedas are quite popular now in the world. It's like a Vedic renaissance everywhere. People become vegetarians, they know something about yoga, about Ayurveda, about Jyotish, like that. And it's happening everywhere, all around the globe, actually, and in Russia as well. So those devotees who have some expertise in these areas like Ayurveda, Jyotish, Vastu, psychology, like that, they go, a little bit roundabout way, but then people become interested in, they're interested in health, in yoga, like that, in vegetarian cooking, and little by little, they come closer to Krishna. So in Russia, this kind of preaching is very, we can say, developed, and so many people come through these indirect programs, and then come closer. So and also Russia is a country where Russian Orthodox Church, we can say the main religion, is very conservative, and it doesn't like, when other religions are spreading. It's a conflict of interest, we can say. And we can say that in this way, ISKCON is like a religion is under little pressure. Not so much, but some little restriction. And that's why we are trying to invent some different other ways to preach, and it's quite successful. Okay, the last one.
So you had mentioned that the demigods have a subtle body. So does it mean that they only have mind, intelligence, and false ego, or do they have some other, like, what about happens to their senses?
There may be some elements of fire, because that's why they are effulgent. Maybe some element of, air, because there are different grades of demigod. Devas, upadevas, they're all different. And some of them even may have some gross body, but not that gross. They don't have a biological body. There's gross biology, and they don't need it. They can, be nourished by sunlight. They don't need gross food. So I can't tell you much information about that. There is a book by Sadaputta Prabhu, Richard Thompson, Alien Identities. He wrote it in 1995. I think it's available, should be available around. And there he describes different kinds of different levels of devas, upadevas, and he gives more information about. I think he takes it from some different Puranas, so you can get more from that book. Alien Identities, Richard Thompson, Sadaputta Prabhu. Okay, so we can stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Hare Krishna. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.